next to you. I get it.
Just wanted to make sure.
All right. Should be streaming now, and just make sure that we're muted. We are. So we'll call this meeting to order. Call this regular meeting of the Easton Board of Education to order at 7:38 p.m. June 14th, 2022. Members in attendance: John Stinson, Jeff Parker, Randy Hicks, Devin Weigel, Jenny Cheetah, and joining us via Zoom, Jennifer Jesus. Also, our illustrious members of our administration here. We'll look at our first item on our agenda, which is the approval of minutes. We have several minutes to approve. We have the May 10th, May 24th, and February 22nd minutes. So we'll look for any corrections or amendments to these minutes.
I have one. I just need a second to find it.
Sure, absolutely.
I should have one. It was our last meeting.
Okay.
The first one.
May 10th.
May 10th. I see May 10th should be the first set of minutes on here. Yes. Yes.
I haven't seen it. I have one.
Do you remember what it should be
No,
like
I
if
found
you
it.
turn?
I found it. No,
Just the public comment, it was Debbie Barer, B-A-R-E-R, not Bauer.
The spelling was B-A-Y-E-R.
B-A-R-E-R, I think.
B-A-R-E-R.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll note that correction. And Jenny?
I just wanted to ask if under my board member comment, the sentence, she spoke at length about the schedule that we as parents are putting our kids through and learning, we should all take pause to consider this. Because I just don't think that accurately represents what I was talking about.
Okay.
My point was actually more about the infrastructure, specifically the school connected infrastructures in terms of schedule and other things that actually make it more difficult for parents. But we could just take that out because it's, I really don't think I said that out. Yeah, just that sentence. the rest.
Okay. Let's strike that sentence unless there's objection. Good. Any other corrections? Hearing none, we'll consider the meeting minutes approved by unanimous consent. That'll take us to public comment. Yes, please.
So it's my first meeting. Where do I go to meet with public comment?
You should be able to come here to the podium. And if you can please state your name, your street, you don't have to give the exact house address, but if you can give us your street and town. Ideally, we keep the meeting, the public comment to 3 minutes per comment, that they're expressed in a civil manner, and don't attack any individual member of our staff. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeanette Bailey. I am the mother of 2 young children here in the district. We live at 44 Hall Road in Easton. I already forgot the rest of the instructions. So don't worry, I'll keep it under 3 minutes and I will be civil. First, I just wanted to say I'm here to speak to the issue of school safety. And thank you for having it on the agenda tonight. I want to commend Dr. McKinnon and Kim Fox-Santora and all of the leadership here, because I think it's been very proactive. Even before the latest school shooting in Texas, I was really pleased with how proactive and forward-thinking it's been. Second, I want to urge the Board of Ed to really take this to executive session. I know that we cannot speak in any detail, any meaningful detail to this very important issue. So I can only urge you and hope that you will continue this conversation in executive session. I have plenty of thoughts and ideas, which I will not share because we do not want to be specific in this meeting. But just to say, myself and other parents are deeply concerned. And I think we do have quite a few ideas out there in the community among parents that I hope you will consider. And then finally, I would just say that I think this is a new world. I mean, we've been in it for 20 years, but it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And I think we have to really push ourselves not to fall back in the status quo. because what I want to see us do in this district is be forward-thinking, to be trying new things, and really not just accepting, this works or this works. I mean, honestly, none of it really does work. So let's think about what we could possibly do that is the best for our kids. I'd like to see us be at the front line of Connecticut, the front line of the nation in terms of school security. And that's because my kids are in this district, and so I care. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to board member comment. Hearing none, we'll go to administrative reports.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. We have a very long agenda this evening, and we're going to be delving into some of the items on the agenda that we would normally discuss during administrative reports. So we're going to punt on a couple of those topics. But I would like to ask Mrs. Fox Santorum if you could provide a brief update for Samuel Staples.
First, I have some fabulous news to announce. This morning, we shared with the Samuel Staples faculty and through email the Helen Keller Middle School faculty that Easton Teacher of the Year is Emily Marquet. We are so proud of Emily. She has been teaching at Samuel Staples for 18 years. 17 of those 18 years, she's been a grade 4 teacher, an extraordinary grade 4 teacher who demonstrates the most incredible, balanced, calm, loving disposition every single day. And she had this brilliant idea last year that she wanted to loop. So she went to 3rd grade for 1 year, fell in love with her class, and looped forward to 4th grade. So the students who heard today that Mrs. Marchetti is the Teacher of the Year were jumping out of their shoes with delight to hear how proud they were of their classroom teacher. When I stopped by, they were just pawing at me, could not believe how excited they were. So we are very, very proud. But you should know we had a real huge, probably more than I can ever remember in my career here, of nominations. It is a teacher nominated program that we run. It is a teacher voted program. We had 5 elementary teachers, and we had 1 Helen Keller middle school teacher. And because we had so many, we originally decided we were going to do rank order. And we ran that 3 or 4 times, and Emily kept coming out as number 1. Then we decided to weight it because the Samuel Staples faculty is twice the size. Twice the size of the Helen Keller
Is it
faculty.
twice?
And we weighted that. In each way that we did, Emily came out number 1. But honestly, the other members are just as deserving. We're so proud of them. They are wonderful ambassadors of this wonderful profession that we have. And we are so grateful to work alongside them every day. So we're very proud. Wanted you all to know that. I haven't yet sent an email out to the parents because it was just one of those days, but I will do so tomorrow. I wanted to give you a kindergarten update. Like I said this every single month, but Dr. Prada did project 98. Based on our super sleuthing, we were expecting 92. And 81 came to the kindergarten orientation last week. It was very exciting. I think we had one little friend, Terry, who didn't want to separate from his parent. Very conservative. What do I do? I go, find a friend, go find that friend. They went running off, finding a friend, and all was well. Parent came back and was able to join me in the cafeteria for the presentation. It was great. Very smooth, wonderful visit. They went on a cute little bus ride all around the town. And of course, at the end, what was your best part of the entire orientation? And it was the bus ride. I've also learned that when you ask kindergartners, do you guys know who I am? Because many of them are in the back seat during car line. Yes, you're Fox Santora. They think my first name is Fox.
Cool.
Like Fox Mulder.
I like that.
You know?
Yeah, that is cool.
So I thought that was pretty cool. Who knew? I wanted to share with you, we have finished, well, we're within a week of finishing the Envisions math program, which was brand new this year. We are very pleased, not only with the strategies that kids have learned, but the growth that they have made. We've been paying very close attention to every single student's unit test performance. And we are really, really pleased. But the pacing guide that Envision provides is really ambitious. And I've been through 3 different math programs in my time here, and all of them are pretty slow in the beginning because the program assumes you've had the prerequisite skills from the year before, and we did K-5. So in many cases, the classroom teachers needed to pause, needed to fill those skills in order to then move forward, and it slowed us down. So I did notify the families today that in each of the grade levels, we didn't finish either the last 3 or 5 units. Most of them are related to geometry and measurement. So we're sending home that last book. There's 2 books that the children had this year, and let them know to look for it in the backpack on Tuesday. We also had field day yesterday, which you might remember being monstrously warm. The 2 PE teachers that we have did a superb job organizing it in such a way that this rotation was fantastic. All of these grade levels out there concurrently, some were going inside for a little snack, some coming out, moving over to a tree activity, a quiet activity. Another group went in for lunch, came back out. Everybody had these just calm moments and then these very high active energy moments. But at the end of the day, everybody was thrilled to have so much fun in the sun, popsicles, water play. It was a lot of fun. And tomorrow, Thursday will be grades 3 through 5. Jeanette is absolutely right in that security really has taken a big focal point in recent weeks. So grateful for the Easton Police Department. The police chief contacted us right away, worked with Dr. McKinnon, put extra police officers on the playground for field day. For the kindergarten orientation, Officer Fester was on the curb as the parents were milling about before we let them in the building. He walked into the lobby area when we were checking everyone in and giving them name tags. Officer Festa followed us into the cafeteria. He got up on stage and talked a little bit about his role as an SRO, and to ease people's mind, he said, I will be available. I'm milling about here with all of you throughout this period. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer questions. But he has provided such a wonderful support for all of us. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that the grade 5 step up is planned for Monday morning at 9:30, and we're in the process of rehearsing for that with 5th graders. That is all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I actually do have a question myself as well.
Okay.
But go ahead.
81 becomes 92, or who knows at this point?
I think that's a pretty good guess.
Just also thank you for letting parents come to end of year parties. I had 2 today. They were lovely. Just really lovely. Just nice to be out there with kids. Parents had so much fun, and the kids love seeing their moms and dads.
And when I forgot to mention the concert, we had a choral and band concert on Thursday night. And the original forecast was that it was going to be raining outside, which was the original plan to have it outside. They aren't going to do it. So in they came, and we all sat there hoping that everyone was going to be comfortable. And it appeared that everybody was very comfortable being in there. And the kids, of course, were just extraordinary. And they too commented about how nice it was to be in the building, enjoying the music and seeing their kids perform on stage. It was lovely.
I think there's caution and concern, but most of the comments I'm hearing are, oh, this is so great to be back here doing this. You know, just people are really, really happy to be doing this.
Do we have any thoughts about next year's possibility of doing some of the end of year things that used to happen for the 5th grade?
Such as Nature's Classroom,
I don't
perhaps?
know, maybe
Might that
Nature's
be on your
Classroom?
mind? Yeah, we booked our time at Nature's Classroom for next year.
Awesome.
We asked, actually, we sent out a survey for 4th grade parents.
Yeah.
Like 88% of them said, yes, we want to go.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't really a question.
And for the current 6th graders and 7th graders, and they can go back too, right? That's.
Executive session.
Also, please pass on the congratulations
I
to
certainly
Mrs. Marquetti. She was a life changer for
Yep.
us.
We certainly will do that. Thank you.
Kim, before you leave, I just, I would love for us to talk about the community, as a community. How do we recognize our Teacher of the Year honorees? Do we do that at convocation? Do we do that at a celebration of excellence? I haven't seen that, haven't been here for a full year. I'd love to kind of brainstorm very well what that looks like, because we really do need to kind of honor.
Yeah, I think she's willing to sit still for a portrait if you so choose.
Oh, but I don't know if it'd be for a good portrait, but I can certainly give it a shot. And could you just provide the board with a brief hiring update? Because I know
Yes,
you've talked to some teachers
Yeah.
recently, and I've interviewed some finalists.
yes, I did hire our art teacher. Oh, my stars, are we lucky? He's very talented, very experienced art teacher who lives here in town, has a little baby in our school. We're very excited. Sam, Savia, Samantha Savia will be our art teacher for next year.
And just a background on that, she was when I student taught in Reading, she was a student in my class.
I've heard also from many, many families how excited they are for the additional, like, I think a few minutes in art, and how
Yes.
happy families are that we're increasing that fine arts piece for kids.
Yes. So she was the first that I hired. I hired, I think both of them have signed, the 2 kindergarten teachers. We have 1 kindergarten teacher who's resigning. So replacing her, and then the additional section of kindergarten. And we have hired the 2nd grade teacher. The 1st grade teacher that I hired at the very last minute called Friday at 4 o'clock to say that she accepted a position in another district. So I'm going to interview for that position. PE is going to be the challenge. That has been posted, Vicki here, I want to say shortly after the referendum, right? It's a 0.4 PE position and only 1 person has applied. And I suspect it's probably going to stay that way until all the full-time positions have been hired, and then people will apply. That's the only one that's been out loud.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really strong candidates.
Yeah.
Dr. Clark?
Good evening, everyone. I will try to be brief. There's so much going on in Keller these days. Outside concerts last week, huge success, big win for us. For those who were there, I know there was a few of you there. It was great to be outside. It was almost like a summer music festival. You know, we just needed some beach balls to bounce around, and but it was great to hear the music and be outside. The little ones were able to run around and not be disruptive, and it was great. I think we'll always have outside concerts where weather permitting. So it was great. We're not quite done yet, though. We have the Helen Keller musical extravaganza of awesomeness coming up on Monday. Yeah, I know it rolls right off the tongue. On Monday, where all the groups come together. We're going to gather outside in our new concert slot, and we'll every ensemble will play some songs for each other, because the kids haven't got to hear each other play. So the chorus will get to hear the band, and the band will get to hear the jazz band, and all that, and it kind of bounces around the room. And we'll even have a guest appearance by Raising Helen, which is our staff band. A lot of end-of-year events to update you on. Brownstone adventure trip with John Reed Middle School is tomorrow. The 8th graders are going there tomorrow. So it's going to be great. They have the whole place to themselves, and they're getting a chance to kind of connect and meet up with each other. Thursday night, we have the barbecue bash, which is kind of replacing the kind of more formal dance. We thought it would be a little bit more 8th grade appropriate. So it's going to be outside. Weather is looking better, so keep that going. And so it's going to be a fun activity outside on Thursday night. And then Friday, of course, is the moving up ceremony. Hopefully, you're all invited. We'd love to have you all there for that at the Lower Pond Field at 6 o'clock. Looks like, again, the weather is kind of trending in the right direction. We do have some rain plans if we need to. Grade 5, we're also working on the transition with grade 5. So we're celebrating our 8th graders, but we're also working with the 5th grade. 5th grade is here tomorrow to do some tours. Last week we had them here. We had the parents here for an event, so a little orientation for them. We tried not to scare them about what middle school was all about. Some of them was a little afraid, but they were comforted. The best part of the night was the 5th graders who were here were getting tours from the 6th graders. Our current 6th graders were getting tours of the building. And then at the end of the night, we handed the kids back to their parents and said, okay, now you show your parents around the school. So, and we had teachers stationed all around, so it all worked very smoothly. It's great. The kids were all proud walking around the school. It was great. So the grade 5 has really been a nice transition. We're also going to add open houses over the summer. So during every Wednesday in August, we'll have an open house from 11 to 12 that people can just come by. If their kids can just come by and check out the 6th grade area. We'll set up a bank of lockers with combinations because they always want to learn how to do the lockers. So we'll let them do that. It's very informal. Stop in for 15 minutes. Come every week. Come once. Don't come. Don't make an appointment. We're just going to have that open time for our families to be able to just feel a little bit more connected to the school. There will be a formal kind of 6th grade orientation for families with the PTO, right? Once schedules are out and all that stuff. We're also having Moving Up Day, which is kind of a new thing. Moving Up Day is the 6th graders are going to go to 7th grade classes. 7th graders are going to go to 8th grade classes. And the 8th graders are going to circle back to their 6th grade teachers. And we're going to do some activities there. For the 6th and 7th graders, it'll be previews of what middle school is like in the next grade. For the 8th graders, it'll be a reflection time to go, what have you been up to for the last 2 years? What have you learned? What are you taking away from middle school since we saw you? So it's a really nice way. And Paul and Jen Burke, who are the social studies and language arts teachers, have been reading their end of year 8th grade essays, the kind of the culminating essays, and scoring them as kind of independent scores. So they get to see this kind of where their writers have gone over the last few years. So that's going to be a real fun day on the 20th. And then we have a field day on the 21st over at the ECC. So that's going to be a great kind of end of the year. One quick note, we're looking at seeing some test scores come back, some of the spring assessments come back. PSATs looked really good in the spring. I don't like to hang my hat on just one test, but they had a really nice jump, and we're really proud of that. Proud of that work, like a much bigger jump than we expected. And SPAs are also coming in, and they're about where we expected, showing some typical growth there. But the PSATs were just remarkable growth there. We'll have probably more of a data presentation in the fall, I'm sure, where all the scores were finalized. Finally, 2 thank yous going out. Beth Andrews and Danielle Fanzo, the PTO co-presidents here, just did a fabulous job of grooming me into my position. So they were fantastic help, super supportive, and were willing to try everything, every crazy idea that I had. So it was great to have those great partners. And I'd also like to recognize the Easton PD, who has just stepped up to their patrols. They've been here every day, just about. They were here in great presence initially after the tragedy in Texas, but they've also been here just regularly, just to be a presence and get to know the kids and be here along with our own security officer. So it's been great to have them around. It's really thank Chief Doyle for making the resources available.
Any questions?
Dr.
Dr. Clark?
There's just so many great new ideas. It sounds like so much fun.
Oh, it's more. We're having a great time.
I've got one, and Steve, it's not necessarily just, do we as a district ever have a teacher of the year that we send up to Hartford for that event?
We send them all, so because there are 3 separate districts, all of our teachers are given the opportunity to advance their name to the state Teacher of the Year competition. And we've had some winners over the years.
Because there's a whole bunch of paperwork that one has to fill out before that event, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Some people choose to move forward and others say, I'm just so honored to be recognized by my colleagues, and then they choose not to move forward.
Okay. It's a nice event that night, so it's why I thanks.
Just a thank you to you for, we see all your emails because you include the board on your emails, and just the amount of communication and clarity, I think, especially when there's a lot of transitions, right? Folks going from 5th grade to 6th grade, 8th graders becoming high schoolers, puts a lot of minds at ease and makes people feel more comfortable. And I love the open house idea where folks, especially the lockers, that's a great, like those little kind of anxiety reducing pieces for young people, I think go a long way. So thank you.
It gives me a chance to get to know them too. So it's a win-win.
This is Jen, real quick, if I could. Dr. Clapp, I just want to give you some feedback that I got from a parent regarding a presentation that Annie had done, and she really appreciated, she has an incoming 6th grader, and she really appreciated how Annie presented the information where, education for kids is just not a straight line up, right? There's going to be ups and downs because of their brain development. And she just found that really reassuring and kind of comforting to have that information. So I just wanted to share that feedback.
Thanks. Annie's become a real expert in brain development and the age group, and we talk a lot about that. And it's comforting to know when your kid is all of a sudden doesn't seem like you're a kid anymore. But that's just part of the kind of natural path of adolescence, and it's to be expected. So if we can lay that groundwork for parents, so all of a sudden when you're very polite, well-mannered little angel says something awful and hateful right back at you, you're like, okay, this is part of the path that we follow, and we'll be calmly navigating this and not overreact. Yeah, this is a dip. As we like to say, we don't prepare the road for the child, we prepare the child for the road. And those bumps in the road are all make us stronger and build up those muscles and get us to a better place in the long run. So yeah, but yeah, it was a great presentation and he's a fantastic presenter. So thanks, Jen. Appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Thank you.
Mrs. DeConte has a report in here. It's mostly focused on the numbers. So Jen, do you have any highlights?
One quick one.
Okay, great.
New IEPs, that's it.
Oh, right. Okay. Great.
So we have a new IEP that's rolling out July 1st, which we've been working hard all year to roll it out. So I'm pretty confident that we've met all the timelines set by the state. So I think we're in pretty good shape. In addition to the rollout, they're doing what's called tiered training for the staff. So the two supervisors and I have been trained at the first level. The next step is we will turn tiered. We have select staff within the buildings to be trained. They would become quote master trainers by the state, and then we turn tiered that way to make sure that all the staff are appropriately trained. We also are required to undergo what's called quality IEP training. The state feels that all of us can do a better job in writing IEPs. There's always room for improvement. So we've been going through some of those trainings, how to make our goals more measurable, how do we tie them to the Common Core? So all the activities that related service providers are expected to do, we want to make sure that it ties into closing that gap with the state standards. What will be, I think, a little bit of a bump in our roads will be the 504 portal is also being rolled out exactly the same time that the IEP portal is being rolled out. So we've been undergoing some glimpse, what does the new portal look like? So hopefully that's the only part that's a little bit unsettling for us, is because we haven't gone through the same level of training for the 504s as we have for the IEPs. But I'm confident that the portal is going to look the same, and we've got some great people that will be able to catch up to speed with those. So that's really going to be what the focus of our summer activities is, making sure that we have that smooth transition from our current program to the new state portal.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, Dr. Pearson, you go.
I promise not
Stephanie's,
to read it word for word.
yeah, Stephanie's report is in the packet. If you have any questions, but we'll get the highlights.
All right, so I'm pleased that you're seeing such a long list of summer curriculum activities, because it's been a few years for us, and I think this really represents greater comfort with being in person with one another, digging into some curriculum work that, quite honestly, has been put on hold for a few years. So I'm really excited to dig back in. I want to just call attention to the K through 8 English language arts work. There is state legislation with respect to the science of reading, and more specifically phonics instruction in the early grades. So I've had several meetings with our elementary literacy specialist on this topic, and we've done some work to create expectations for every grade level in terms of the time requirements for phonics instruction, kindergarten level phonological awareness, and then grammar instruction and as well. So the teachers are going to be provided with, I would say, a roadmap that includes a more delineated explanation of how the reading and writing block needs to be used in each grade. And so they, as I said, we've met several times about that. They'll have another meeting next week before school gets out, and then they'll continue their work over the summer. So digging into that work as a team. In addition to that, I also want to remind everyone that June 19th is Juneteenth. And while we would typically be out of school by that time, we will be in school. And so obviously we'll be in school, and so we're not taking the holiday off, but teachers have been provided with a long list of resources and opportunities for them to integrate instruction about that holiday as they see fit, based on their assignment and grade level. I think that's it.
Okay, hopefully.
Yeah. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much.
Does that complete your administrative
It
report
does.
section? Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, that'll take us to discussion and possible action. The first item up is fiscal year 2022 financial updates.
Okay.
Before we go any further, we had as E, possible appointment of new Board of Education member to fill a vacancy. She is here. I see that on B and C, we have possible executive sessions. I was wondering if we might be able to take E and move it under A, and that way she won't be
I think that's
waiting out in the parking lot.
I think that's a fine suggestion. I think we would probably not hold a vote then. I think we would sort of introduce ourselves to the candidate and hear from the candidate, and then we can proceed with the rest of the meeting. And we can figure out how we want to deal with the sort of vote on that. Does that make sense to you?
I don't know why we wouldn't vote after the.
Well, because I think Jenny's intent is to participate in this meeting.
Oh, I
Right.
see what you mean.
So,
Okay, then that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
good. I think that's a fine idea. So I think I'd look for a motion or a second to Jeff's motion to amend the agenda to move B above A. Yes, Devin? Good. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Great, and thank you, Jen, on Zoom, unanimously approved. Thank you, Jeff, for being considerate of our guest. So I think in the interest of hearing from our possible appointee to the board, we'd love to invite Allison to come up and join us. I think I'd asked members to just think about some questions to help us get a sense of who you are, and thank you so much for sharing your resume with the board. That's really helpful as well. And maybe I can just kick things off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in joining the board.
Thank you. That'd be wonderful. My name is Alicia Young.
Sorry.
That's okay. I get Allison, Alicia. I answer to a lot. I'm really very pleased to be here tonight. I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about who I am, what I've done for a living, and why I'm interested in joining the Board of Education. I grew up in Easton. I've been part of the school district since 6th grade. I went to Helen Keller and I graduated from Joe Barlow. My daughter's 10-year board is over there. She's going to be an obstetrician apparently, so I'm delighted. I have 2 girls in the school system. I have a rising 5th grader and I have an 8th grader who's going to join Barlow next year. I come from a family that's really dedicated to public service, and I grew up surrounded by education. My mother was a school psychologist in Orange, Connecticut. Prior to that, she was a special education teacher, and I spent many years helping her. And that's where I first began my love of education. I was originally going to be a kindergarten teacher, but the plans got in the way. My parents are very active in Easton. And the silver lining for me for COVID was that I don't have to commute to New York City anymore. I can work from home. And suddenly the 4 hours that I was spending on the train, I have free to do other things. I spend it with my family, and I'm ready to get back to the town. And I think my perspective, having grown up here as a student, having benefited from what the school district can do for its students, and the ability to bring a fresh perspective, I think, to how we act as a board is my main interest. I've been working in marketing communications for about 30 years. I was a newspaper reporter prior to that. My work has given me the opportunity to bring people together from all different countries, all different walks of life, all different disciplines. My educational experience, I've done quite a lot of work in the area of the digital divide. And I've worked with companies to help them bring technology and resources to lower income students across the United States. I've worked with companies like IBM to get donations to low-income areas around the country to bring technology into schools. I've worked at the higher education level, helping foundations fund grant programs for HBCUs and work to promote the work that they're doing and the importance of keeping funding alive for that level of education. And last but not least, I've also been very active in educational programs regarding teen dating, violence, and sexual assault. And it's a sticky, complicated topic, but it's one that really affects youth. And through that work, I was involved in helping develop curriculum and helping raise awareness of that issue, removing the stigma so that people could talk about it and come to solutions and how that benefits everybody by having those discussions. So that's a little bit about me, personal life and my professional life. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful. Any questions for Alicia?
No, I could say something sarcastic, but I'm.
No.
Thank you for your interest.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much for your
amen.
interest.
Amen.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have somebody passionate about, education, able to join us and recommended from the Republican Town Committee. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Okay. And we will move on to item what is now the fiscal year 2022 financial update. And we'll figure out at the end of this meeting whether we're sort of voting on Alicia's candidacy at the end of this meeting or if we do a special meeting. I think we've talked about doing a special meeting for other items like that in the not too distant future. So we may be looking at something in a couple of weeks to do that. But I think we do not currently have a July meeting scheduled. So the next regular meeting is August. There'll be plenty of time for swearing in and all that. So good. All right.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. You should have in front of you a memo dated June 14th, 2022. And the memo is Easton budget updates. This memo has, let's see, 4 main parts. And I'd like to ask Mrs. Scrivani to take us through the first 2 parts, which is some business moves that we need to make.
So the very first part 1, first, it talks a little bit about at the fact that the April 19th meeting, the Easton board approved our final budget and then asked that Mr. Parker suggested that the board consider paying the 2nd and 3rd installments of the voluntary early retirement plan out of unexpended funds from the current year's budget. So what you see down below on the first page are the final reductions to the 2022-2023 approved Easton budget. So you'll find those on the budget website. And I just wanted to make sure that we went over all of these. So the approved amount was a reduction of 89,201. And so that is now comprised of 5 of the 6 employees participating in the VERA agreed to the earlier payment for a total of 85,000. And then Helen Keller certified staff other payments, summer pay for scheduling was reduced by $1,201. And then pay in lieu of insurance was reduced by $3,000. And those are just all based on retirement and staffing changes that made sense to reduce those amounts. Does anybody have any questions about that first part?
And just going over on page 2, there's a possible motion that we outlined, and it was the move that the Easton board authorized an additional payment for VERA 2 of 3. we have in our records that you approved the 3 of 3, and you may have talked about payment number 2, but we did not find a motion to approve that. So we just wanted to kind of clean that up.
I think we may have assumed that 2 of 2 was already happening. And so if there's no record of that supposed to have happened, it was certainly our intent, at least that's my perception of it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we would certainly, if this motion helps us to make sure that we formalize that, then I don't think there's, I suspect we'll get very little pushback there. I'll look for the motion that, well, it's on the page one. Yeah.
Yeah, so we reduced, this is our solution to the 89,201.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so the second part of that, because Jeff talked about that in the meeting minutes, I wanted to put it right underneath so that it sort of made sense when we talked about it. And also to make an explanation as to why it says, why 1 would be 2 of 3 and then 3 of 3, so that we can just clear that all up.
Yep.
But I think if you wanted to wait until we went through the whole memo, that would be fine. I think it would make more sense to you towards the end, because I did include that there in the end of year summary. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I guess my only question was, is this the only solution to solve the 89,201 cut?
Oh, so in that meeting, we actually talked, we talked about a couple of different things. And you asked us to go back and take that specifically from the Vera.
And that's fine. Usually there's some breakage that occurs between the time we do the budget and June 30 or whatever. Has there been any breakage that? These are fine, and we can probably just move on. I was just curious, if there was breakage of 260,000, then this would change this, or it might not. It just inures to our benefit next year, and we figure it out then.
I think, well, as we move on, you might
Okay,
get answers to more of your questions.
I'll take a hint.
Okay.
You also have an updated budget object summary. So I just wanted to bring your attention to 2 different things.
That's part 2.
So part 2 would be that we had, the original count was a correction. There was a special education tuition payment posted to 561 instead of 563 in the amount of 31,250. And so that's been updated. So that's in your new budget object summary. That was a correction. You'll also notice that the pre-K tuition was not factored into the current budget year. And we received that tuition in the amount of $65,832. And so that is reflected in account 104.
Okay, which 561, 11 or 12? Maybe it's out. Looks like it's
Oh, I'm
11.
sorry.
It's 11, right?
It's 11.
So, okay, so 104 ties perfectly based on the 65.
Yes.
Yep.
We only have pre-K in one of the schools. So the next thing so part 3 is that you had some questions about the credits to transportation. And so I wanted to let you know that the credits for the transportation budget object summary are as follows for the different time periods. So these are the ways that we receive those transportation credits. Buses that do not run for half or full days, we get a credit back of $510.22 for the full day, $255.11 for the half day. And then we get a time that's a credit for when the bus is running from the last location to the depot without any students. I learned that it was called a deadhead. So there we go. And so that's included in 510. And then because it also, the special education transportation is connected with that, I put both of those up the top. So those are our estimated where we're going to end the year for transportation.
So this is,
We're going to end with a positive in 510 and a negative in 511. But really, your question was more about the credits. So I wanted to make sure that we had that.
and 511, was that, I mean, who knows, but was it just a miss to the tune of 69,000? Budget standpoint, is that your best guess?
So there was a change. That's a special ed budget. Jen can speak to that, but we've talked about it and it's just a matter of students switching, moving different needs and changing placements.
Yeah. Sort of moving your stuff.
Does that help explain why the special ed busing has gone up 95,000 year over year?
It does. So part 4 is the employee health benefits account. And you all also have you should have this in your packet, which is the Easton School District Health Claims Analysis. So this speaks to that sheet as well. So this year, the starting balance was $912,250. Our current health savings balance as of May 31st is $713,668. Our May claims, $227,799. We're estimating that our June claims will be about $300,000 plus an administrative fee of about $17,000. And so we project that our end of the year employee health benefits account balance will be about $396,668.
And we've used all 12 months of the, well, 1/12 of what our total has been that is coming from town hall.
So that's what we have currently right now in, from our starting balance and then what we drew down this year and what was added to there. You can see that on this, there's like on this sheet right here, you can see it broken down. But we think we're going to end that account with $396,668. Added to that, we currently have encumbered in our current budget in lines 270 and 271 accounts, $896,314 and $466,880. So in addition to what we have projected in our account, we also have an additional encumbrance that's in that you can see in lines 270, 271. Does that make any sense?
It makes all sense. Yes.
Yes?
Okay, so.
So we're gonna have a lot of money.
So we have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well,
Everything
Encumbered.
makes-
yeah,
Makes sense?
encumbered,
It
not,
does,
right.
it does, this isn't the way I would present it, but that's just the, so we budgeted 2.5 million.
We
See,
did
I would start with 912
912.
and I would add the budget amount, 2.5 million. And I was subtracting that what we actually spent, which is a combination of claims and service fees. So 912 plus 2.5 minus what our claims and our servicing. That comes to a number. I'm gonna hazard a guess that number is 396,000 plus 896,000 plus 460,000.
1.7.
The way you just explained it made sense.
So if we're ending the year at $1,700,000,
We are.
then
Right, but
then we need to apply what we budgeted for next year, which was a shortfall.
Yep.
Under what Brown and Brown would tell us
Exactly.
X, and
Yes.
subtract that from the 1.7. And then we have sort of a cushion, then that is our cushion, so to speak,
Exactly. Right.
between, okay.
Yep.
And so, anybody remember what our shortfall was when we budgeted next year?
Yeah, I think we
Uh,
cut
It's in
another
the minutes.
400.
We were
That's-
400,000, I think.
That's
off of-
correct.
Off of what this year was.
It was. And so the question becomes, of that 1.7, how much of that do we want to put in reserve, right? Because it's not 1.7. We're not going to say 0 in reserve. It's 1.7 minus whatever we think is the right amount to put in reserve, keeping in mind that we went way below what Brown and Brown recommended. And that the regular 3 months of reserves that they might recommend, which may equate to 650 or 750, may not be enough because we went so far below what they recommended for the larger budget.
So, in very broad numbers, let's say the number is 1.7.
Yep.
Let's say that we undershot next year by 400.
Yep.
So now we're at 1.3.
Yeah, I was gonna say something I want to work with it, great.
Take Take, 250 times 3, 250,000, 750,000. 800,000 and subtracted from 1,000,003, and there's 500.
Mhm.
And the 500, I think the way this would work is that you would not draw that from the town. So essentially, it's part of the money that stays or goes back to town. We view it as going back to town. If we never take it, it stays with the town. So that's a 500,000 that we put on the shelf someplace. And then when we figure out sort of this,
Yep.
it goes to that, and we say, okay, 500 plus whatever we think this number is, absent healthcare. You have to take healthcare out of this object summary, so we don't double count it, and say, okay, 500,000 plus 300 here, there's 800 left over.
Right.
Kim gets a new parking lot, or something better.
I think she's got some.
You woke her up.
competition.
Yeah, right. But, so, and that, I don't know, that,
Yeah, that reads right to me in terms of the process. And I think that's basically what you've laid out as well,
That
right?
is what I.
Yeah.
yeah.
So if we-
Great minds think alike.
She's like, flip your page over.
I don't know.
So on the last page, so your remaining, you can see that the remaining encumbered funds. So it's really right in line with what you just articulated. And then our unexpended funds underneath that, and included in that would be VERB 2, if you approve that, VERB 3. We included the 6th person in that just in case we were able to, we were able to contact them and they wanted to be included. And then in the unexpended funds, not included in your budget object summary, you'll see the extra pay and the subs for the 6/17 payroll, confirmed annuity payment. We're suggesting the payout of unused sick days for the support staff. There's 7 retirees, and that's our estimated payout of 43,163. June summer curriculum workshops are not included in unexpended funds. And then we estimated the final subs and extra pay for remaining June days, because we haven't had those days yet, so we're not sure what that looks like, but that would be additional pay for those days and then subs, which gives us a total, combining both the remaining unencumbered and the unexpended, of approximately 823.20. And then we made some suggestions as to what you might like to do with them.
So 823.20 is what our overage is for our unspent balance for the year.
If you decide that you're going to put 600,000 into your health
Okay.
benefits account, and you decide that you want to do VERB number 2 and VERB number 3, then that would be, and the rest of the things, right up above that are listed out, some of those are, we have to do them, transportation, open BOs, our confirmed remaining contract salaries.
Can I just get clarity on the 600,000? Would that mean that our balance would be 600?
No.
No, it would
Okay,
be,
good. That's the right
It'd
answer.
be
That's closer to the
be
right
about
answer.
900.
it would be about 900,000.
Okay, that's,
Just but I don't pay too much. you think.
Well,
well,
I'm
but,
asking,
but
right?
given how far under, because
Right.
we, instead
know
of
we're- yeah.
increasing 5%, we
Right.
cut.
We kind
you
of,
know.
well, right, and like
Right.
our claims this year are about, there's just so much, like, there's no real, we can't, we're guessing that our claims will stay at this low level, which do not track with the last 3 years based on that report that you sent.
And if Reading is a,
No, we're not.
No,
I would disagree.
No, we haven't made
So
any
hold on just a second.
decisions based
You,
on
you
this
say
year's
we're
numbers.
closing the year at 400 on this page.
Well,
So if you add 600 to it, wouldn't that be a million?
No, that's just what's currently encumbered in those accounts.
No. Projected year-end employee health benefits account balance, 396.
396, 668.
Okay.
If we add the 600,000 to that.
Got it.
So that, the projected is what's already in there out of that,
it's $1 million.
out of what's. So right now, our reserve ending balance is 713, 668. But that doesn't include June claims. So we're estimating that our June claims will be about 300,000 plus 17,000 for administrative fees. So if you take that away, you should come out with 396, 668.
Right.
Did that make sense?
That's what right, that's 400,000.
400,000,
And if we add 600 to that, that's a million.
that's a million.
I thought you said 900.
It's about, well, it's about nine, it's not, it's like,
996.
it's like
960.
996, it's like 996.
996.
It's a little shy, it's a little bit shy of that.
Okay, I guess,
Randy, I'm a round downer.
that's fine. And I just think, I think 600 is too much, but that's just my 2 cents on that. And the reason being, to start the year, I just think you would start the year around 800 or 900. And even though we've undershot, if our claims come in next year the way they did this year, we'll undershoot even our undershoot that we projected.
We projected 220 a month.
Yeah, and we're not even averaging that
No.
this year based on.
I would say the warning that
We can go up from this year and still be at our lowered budget next year and still have 800,000 left over.
yeah, and that may work out. We got to figure out how to get sort of dialed into whatever that arc looks like, because I think we've been above it and then we've been adding to it. And so this is an opportunity for us to right size it, but we also want to be careful that we're not getting ourselves into a position like Reading found themselves in the past and then again this year where the claims were way above and they ended up in having to make some pretty tough decisions in the middle of the year. So I also think $1 million may be too high. 900 sounds about right to me, but
They're also adding.
Yeah.
How many staff members? 5.
it's true. And everyone presents a new opportunity for additional, costs that there are sort of new people in the pool who may need healthcare that we weren't bringing before.
So the suggestion from Brown is 3 months in the reserve,
Yes.
and if we estimate the reserve at 250,
Mhm.
then we would want to be around 750, and we're at $1 million. So we're 250-ish over, maybe.
Yeah, and in part, I think that's making up for that 250 or the 100 over what a 3-month reserve looks like is to insurance against the idea that, hey, we went way below what they recommended. And just in case we're wrong.
We want to have a safety.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
And if we end next year in a position where we have extra funds, we could also return those funds.
Right.
Next year. So it's just, could be potentially a buffer in
Right.
case.
Right, it would seem strange for us to have this sort of ever buffer because we could be having this exact same conversation next year
Right.
about forwarding the buffer. So to me, if we're slightly reducing the buffer this year, instead of $1 million, we have 900,000 and we're still safe there, then maybe the next year, okay, we can go from
Right.
900,000 to 800,000 and, make sure that that's a sort of gradual step down.
Our
That's just the way that I
insurance
think about it.
is self-funded, right? So if you have
Yes.
one significant event.
Yes,
That was not.
there's stop
there's a
losses.
stop loss.
So, yeah, you can,
The stop loss is 150, isn't it, or is it 175?
I thought it was 170.
175.
I know we're in the weeds on this, but I think we should pause
Yeah.
for just a moment to remember the days of talking about, can we even keep it at 100?
Yeah.
In the reserve, or 150 in the reserve?
Yeah, that wasn't that long
This
ago.
is- This is an amazing
Agreed.
position to be in.
In 2018-19, we were in the whole 57 grade.
That's right.
I think that because of the strength of your reserve and because of low claims, you were able to reduce the burden to the taxpayer next year by lowering the budget. And that you have that, you were able to make that decision because you had a strong health reserve.
Yeah.
So it does give you another tool in the bag when you have a health reserve.
Yeah.
And we are aware of, unfortunately, some employees with some significant health challenges this year. That's why we predicted that June claims would be higher. However, we also believe that those high claims continue into July and so on. So obviously we can't say too much more about that, but
Well, next year is still such a big unknown, because we just don't know how things are gonna trend after this year. Is it back to normal, what's it gonna look like next year, as things even out a little bit more,
Yeah.
start getting back to that.
Yeah, if we're really back to normal. I saw my first sort of Pfizer commercial for the antiviral pill that you can get now for COVID. And I'm just like, there, that's normal. You've got, commercials on TV for a pill you can take. Okay.
Well, no, our healthcare costs are going up, like I think
Yeah.
other costs. So,
really the important two pieces, the important pages are the last page, your budget object summary, where you have 3.2 million in encumbered and 480,000 in unexpended. And on the last page of the memo, we've kind of showed you the ins and outs of, well, that 3.2 million that's encumbered, there's some significant things that we showed you where those monies are encumbered, right? So the 600,000 from the purchase order, the 1.4 million remaining in contract salaries, transportation, open POs, and so on, leaving you 646,000 in encumbered. And then you see the unexpended for 480,000, and you can see the takes, leaving you with 176,000 for a total of 823. The 823 includes a $600,000 contribution. If you thought that was too much and you wanted to lower that to 500,000, then that would mean that your total estimated remaining funds would be about 923,000, not 822,000.
John, what are you looking for in terms of
Action.
motions and
Yeah.
action and discussion? about-
Well, and there's a little bit of a chicken or the egg thing, because we may get into a conversation in a moment about security recommendations that says, hey, let's scoop a little bit of that if we need to do something.
Let's make, well, sure, there's a couple of security upgrades on here, and those are slim type things.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be any question.
Are there additional security suggestions beyond the table?
I wonder about the conversation that ensues and whether or not that happens. So I don't know that,
And then
there's
do
a
we
couple of
have
things. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Further requests from administration about
Right.
improvements they're interested in.
So if you take a look right down at the bottom, you'll see that there's $12,371 for some library shelving. That is for Helen Keller. That would be for this space right here. There's also $21,335 for a new library carpet. There's also $20,217 for an office carpet, also in the hall. Security updates, 17,000-ish. I would love to refresh the Chromebooks in 6th and 3rd grade. Right now, the K2 classrooms have a total of 60 devices between them all, so that's 4 per classroom. I love to be able to redistribute the older Chromebooks to the K2 classrooms. We hired some new folks over at Samuel Staples, and we need to put in some interactive whiteboards in those classrooms. I'd love to be able to do that this summer. The rave security, a great idea. We can talk about that. We had talked at one time about repaying the lease staff hardware laptops. We could prepay some of those. We also would like to purchase foundations to support literacy in 3rd grade. Additional funds for the classroom supplies for the new Samuel Steeples teachers, just because supplies have become more expensive with supply chain struggles. 18,000 for decodable texts, and I'll stop right there and let Dr. Percival talk about that a little bit.
Right, so this is a particular type of decodable text. They're called geodes. So ELF very generously supported a sampling of these texts for a special education teacher at Samuel Staples. The literacy specialists feel very strongly about their use, and this is all connected together with the science of reading work that I referenced earlier. These decodable texts are aligned with the foundation's lessons. The foundation lessons are phonics lessons. So they engage students in reading text that is highly decodable, so the students can experience success as they're learning their reading skills. And so if we were to equip every classroom, it would cost approximately $110,000. So what you're seeing here is simply to provide our literacy specialists the kits so that in their work with students through SRBI, they will have access to the kits, and certainly teachers could check them out. But I imagine that you will be seeing a budget request to continue to develop this resource over the next couple of years.
If I remember correctly from the ELF fund, these geodes were really intended for some of the older students because decodables typically are used with younger kiddos, right? So some of our kids who are struggling to decode in 4th grade, like this helps.
They can be, yeah, right. So as they're reading at a lower grade level, they're very colorful. I mean, they're just very well-made books. And for a student who's struggling to read, it's really important that they can have some pride in the books that they are able to read. And these are they're very well done. So they are expensive, but they're well done.
So the kits themselves, your total expense here is 18 grand. What are the individual kits cost?
I can tell you. I happen to have that information handy. So to equip each classroom, it would cost, let's see, $2,150 plus roughly $3,700. So $3,750. What? $2,150 and $3,700.
Before we
Yeah, I can't do it on the spot. Not 39,000.
No, how much is it? I'm sorry.
2,150
50?
and 3,700.
Oh, okay. I put 37.
About 5850 a classroom. So in grades K through 2, we will have 6 sections next year. So that's where the price quickly goes up to over 100,000.
Could you do one per, like, instead of one per classroom, like one per
grade?
Yeah.
If you
And then one
choose
for
to
others.
fund more, I promise that we will be very thoughtful in how we distribute the resource. So for right now, I figured starting with the literacy specialist, but if we doubled that and then, change the 18 to 36,000, we could then have one kit that could be shared among the teachers.
I just looked at your like the special ed numbers, the number of kids who are requiring, like who are testing into like a dyslexic range.
Yes.
And potentially an Orton Gillingham approach, like Foundations, Wilson Reading has some good stuff, but like,
Multisensory.
yeah.
Yeah.
so to me, bringing those into K2 would be really.
We are making greater use of structured literacy approaches and sort of a multi-sensory approach to reading instruction in the classroom. So our literacy specialists have engaged in more professional development. One of our literacy specialists at Samuel Staples has gone through the Orton Gillingham more advanced training program. So that's a terrific skill set that she's developing. But more and more, we're seeing a need for this instruction at the tier 1 level. And so, We don't want to wait until they fail. We don't want to wait until they really require a great deal of intervention. We want to begin to help our teachers to help the students in the classroom. The foundation's request for grade 3 is not something honestly I would have supported 5 years ago. My feeling was that I wanted to stretch our kids and I didn't want all students to be engaged in skill instruction that maybe wasn't necessary. I've changed my thinking on that. I see the needs in our 3rd graders and even some of our 4th graders that seem to be growing. And certainly the last 2 years have not helped us.
So hopefully we'll have some great success stories to share during the year, and that will make the request for the year after next so much easier.
Yeah, I
These
mean,
are
I
reusable
do think,
resources, yes.
yes, the greater emphasis on the discrete skill instruction will also help because that will be happening in the classroom as well.
I just center this discussion a little bit. I know you're looking at kind of a menu of items at the bottom of that list. It's really an a la carte selection. The big rock you need to move is how much money are we putting in the health benefits account? Is it 500,000, which means we'll have a balance of 900 approximately, or is it 600,000, which will have a balance of approximately 9? And then that conversely will mean how much money we have unexpended. We're going to have 823, 900, 23,000. So that's the big rock I think you need to move. And then you need to make a decision of the remaining $800,000 left unexpended. Are we going to discuss some of these items that we've listed on that? And are you returning money to the town? If so, how much money are you returning to the town? Right. So
Can we make a motion
Please.
to get that started?
Yes.
I don't know exactly
Let's
how to
start with the
word
help.
it, but
Sure.
if somebody could help me with the numbers, but I would like to move that we go forward with the slightly less conservative approach, whatever the.
The 500?
500.
That we move 500 to
Oh, it's
the
on.
health reserve.
Move that the Easton Board of Education authorize 500,000 into the employee health benefits account of the already encumbered $1,356,995.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Jenny. Discussion. Everyone seems to be on the same page with this. Jen, anything? On
No,
Zoom?
I'm good. Thank you.
Discussion? Okay, we'll call the question then. All in favor? Jen? All right, unanimously approved. Big rock.
good, that's a big rock.
Good.
Right. And now we have approximately 923,000.
Line them up, Dr. McKinnon. Push these boulders over the edge.
923,000.
So the next big rock is the VERA.
And that one, there's a motion for that. too.
There is earlier in the,
Move that the Easton Board of Education authorize additional payments of $102,000 for the VERA payments 2 of 3 from 21-22. I think that's Dr. McKenna wanted to put that in.
Yes,
So
thank you so much.
So I'll make that motion.
Devin seconds. Discussion.
Any comments or explanations? They're all.
We all got it.
Yeah,
We're doing just the 102, not the 204.
I think we had already done the
We'd
3
already
of
did
3.
the
We already made the 3 of 3 move, so this is
Okay.
the 2 of 3.
Just doing the.
Just making sure, crossing Ts and
It's on
dotting
the
Is.
record.
Got it.
Good, then we'll call the question. All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
and Jen on Zoom? Aye, very good, unanimously approved.
Is it possible to email the list of areas requested for funds that I don't believe it's in the package?
Yep, it's on the way, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is on 923.
Yes, correct. 123.
That's right.
Well, there's 2 ways to go at this, right? There is going down the list.
Yep.
Or we could all, or we can make the decision how much we want to get back to the town and then take the difference. And that creates a stop sign when we get to the.
Yeah,
number
when you
that,
hit the-
we made available.
Right.
authorize the administration to fund these leftover projects after you've moved that other big rock to the town. And then we could prioritize from that list rather than discussing each one.
We could do that as well.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, so confirmed extra pay in sub 17.6. I don't understand what that 21,374 is, confirmed extra pay in subs.
That's for the balance of
Oh,
the year.
so up through 617, anyone who has put in to be out or has been out, we accounted for that in that 21,374 and any additional extra pay. So if we know that someone is going to receive an extra payment for extra hours, like summer hours or something like that, where we already know for sure that they did the work, we included that in that particular line. So those are confirmed extra pays. We know for sure that those people did the work and need to get paid, or the sub did the work and need to get paid, or we estimated that in the next 2 days, that's the next pay period.
And none of that was encumbered,
Correct.
because it would normally be in the 22-23 budget?
No, it's just, we don't encumber, that's not the way that we encumber. We don't encumber any special payments. We only encumber salary items.
These are
So
additional
we
on top of
only
salary.
encumber contractual salaries. We don't encumber any extras.
Give me a, for instance, of an extra, like,
So it's a variable. So like, for example, we don't encumber any money to go towards summer curriculum work
Right.
or June work, because we're not sure who's going to sign up to do that work. So we budget for some, but we don't encumber it. We have it budgeted, but not encumbered, because we're not sure who's going to do it.
If someone were
Hasn't
doing,
happened yet.
if someone were doing advising chess club, you would not encumber that?
that's in.
That is encumbered.
That's a stipend, so
Yeah,
that
okay,
would
so
be.
stipends
So
are-
so encumbered are known expenses,
And these
like-
are,
right?
Right.
this is work that hasn't, so
A teacher works 2 extra hours to do curriculum work.
How
for
do we know
faculty.
this number, what, okay, I sort of understand it, but maybe we should look at that practice going forward if we, because it seems like, it's not an insignificant amount, right, $21,000. 20 people are making $1,000 or 40 people making $500, so it's.
well, I think
Yes.
Vicky
Vicky, thank you.
will
Vicky,
make
we're
it more
waiting.
clear than I.
Right, so for every payroll period, we have reports from the schools for people who might have done chaperone work for a field trip. And that's an extra pay. Maybe there's overtime for a custodian. There's night differentials. So those are extra pays that are not encumbered because you don't know if they're gonna happen or not,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So we already know definitely what's being paid this Friday and that amount is specified. And then I made an estimate for the final pay for the remaining 9 days that will be in the July 1st pay. So there are 9 remaining June days that will be in the July 1st pay.
And that's the 25,000 at the bottom?
I'm sorry?
That's the 25,000?
Yeah,
Vicky, do you mean the June 30th pay?
no,
Yes.
so the payroll is bi-weekly, right?
Right,
So the next payroll is this Friday. 2 weeks from now is July
it's
1st.
July 1st.
And
Okay,
so
so
that
it's,
includes 9 days at the current year budget and 1 day.
oh, okay, that's how it works. All right, I was wondering what, yeah, I was- that's why I said, let's,
Vicky, can you
send
repeat
them the
that?
money on June 30th.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
So can I ask a question? So this 219, 213 on the kind of top third of page 5, that is the sum of all of the current requests in this table.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if we were to fund all of those things, that would be taken out of the 923.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So my question then is, instead of going through these items one by one, which I really like not doing, it seems to me that there may be additional asks beyond that 219. And then there's also this HKMS cafe furniture that is not part of the table because that seems like a bigger ask. So is there an amount that, because you potentially said there might be like, instead of going through each of these and debating them, like a lump sum
can we talk about the biggest one of these? It's not on the table, which is the cafe furniture. Because I think, I don't know. I see, look at how happy.
I feel like he wants to say something.
Dr. Klepp, you sent me some information on the cafe furniture just recently.
Yes,
And can you please explain what it is?
sure.
Because I can show everyone I could show
Yeah, if you
everyone.
want to put up some of the slides to give a sense. So this started out as an ELF grant idea, and working with the board there of how we can have a big impact project. They haven't done something big with the school. And we felt that the cafeteria, as it's a space where all the kids navigate throughout the day, and it's used as an instructional space as well, really needed a kind of an overhaul update. And without going into a bigger capital expense in terms of like roofing needs and water mitigation concerns, which are, I think, bigger, probably bonded issues to go. This is a project that could be movable if we needed to. It's not like something that like carpet, where if we have a water issue again, we're gonna have to deal with the carpet again. This is something that kind of outlasts just even the building if we ever had to do that. So we started looking at what is the most innovative kind of look for cafeterias for middle school kids these days. And it's really dynamic seating, kind of more of a food court kind of a look to it, where there's lots of different options for kids. So some kids want to sit in a group of 12, and some kids want to sit alone and not look like they're sitting alone. They want to sit with one other person or two other people. And right now we have tables of 4. We have 33 tables of 4. So over on the left-hand side of each of these slides is a schematic of the cafeteria footprint. The front, the top would be the stage. Right? If you scroll up just a tiny bit, that's the stage. And then the bottom of that schematic is the servery area. And so the dark area on the, John, if you could just highlight the lower blue area where the booth seating is, so that's where those particular seats would go. So I met with and again with some help from met with a designer, a cafeteria designer who took this footprint and made the schematic for us, and then started to take that vision of like having a food court feel, dynamic seating. Kids can sit in 4s, 3s, 2s. They could have stand-up seating. Stand-up seating sounds a little that isn't the right term. I would say it's high top seating along the windows, so they could sit either alone or in groups of 2. And it's all very fresh, very clean, very light, very durable, movable furniture that are around in different areas. So this is one particular design. This was kind of the top of the line, fully loaded version that we went through. Which is beautiful and it's wonderful and would be wonderful. But there's also some ways we could also pare that down a little bit too. Alf's idea was they were going to help us get started on this and seed some of these pieces, some of the big pieces, and then we would do like a capital fundraiser, get the PTO involved, kind of chip away at it, maybe make it part of a capital expense over the years through this board. And kind of chip away at it and have it be kind of a several years kind of effort to update the whole cafeteria. Yes, sir.
Steve, you also have, I think, a report that gives us some information about what it would take to remediate the water problem that we have at the school coming up through the country.
There's been, I haven't seen the reports on all that, but I know there was you authorized some reports to be done. So I think that the board probably needs to review those reports to see what exactly I think we can all probably predict if you look pretty closely and having lived through the kind of floods of a few years ago where water was actually coming through the halls and ruined the gym floor, that there is some irrigation issues on the upper level of the school that needs to be addressed at some point. The roof needs to be replaced. When you get a lot of water like we did last week, the gutters can't hold it, and that the water is seeping into the ground, which is increasing the issues, and then that creates mold. And one of the things we have to do all summer long is we have to run air conditioners through the whole building so the mold doesn't creep up on us, to keep the mold out. So we have to keep the air conditioning running. Wow. So the building was not designed with air conditioning everywhere, and so
right.
And so that in the current climate, physical climate, the weather climate, that doesn't bode well for public policy. So we have to keep that. I think there are some recommendations there on those. But the cafeteria is way nicer project to work with.
Not the issue, but when you don't have a capital improvement plan, and we have a plan that was commissioned by the previous superintendent, the previous business director, that was from May of 2021, and it lists some suggested upgrades to the building, which includes the roof and the drainage and so on. The issue is that those types of projects, you would have to describe kind of a scope for what it is that you're going to look at. Develop an RFP, collect bids, come through this process and get those bids approved. You know, we just went out to bid for a playground project over at RES. And it takes time to kind of put those things together. So we're in this unfortunate situation where we have unexpended money at the end of this year. You've had 3 superintendents in 3 years and 4 business directors in 3 years. And it's just astonishing to think about that. And we're in the process of hiring a facilities manager. And really, you need to take a look at these projects and start getting quotes and bids and developing a capital plan in order to move forward. But it's absolutely, these projects are critical. But I don't know how we move forward on some of them when it's June 14th, right? And I don't even know about the playground, sorry, the playground, the parking lot over at Samuel Staples.
Right.
Can you just talk about that, Kim? Because it's a significant need. And do you have a number for that project?
Okay.
Mr. Who?
Yeah, Mr. Nagy.
Oh, Mr. Nagy.
Did he ever give you a number?
Oh, he did. Just to replace that section along the south side of the school, that's all, I think they call it allergy. That's gonna cost $70,000. And we don't have $70,000. Can you fill the hole? That's all I want, is fill the hole. It was so expensive. Everything's just gone up so very much. But if you were to walk the perimeter of our parking, it's all just crumbling along the grass line. Anywhere where there was patching done, it's all cracked along the patching. It's a significant. There are storm drains. It's all crumbling around the storm drains. Look at that.
There's grass growing up too.
Yeah.
Every crack.
I mean, well, one way to start this is that we set up a committee that works with Sarah or works with the new. And they start putting this stuff together. And you know, the committee's not going to be able to do the RFPs, but they can work on it, just like we do the bus contract, which is, you know, minuscule compared to this. The roofs, the parking lots,
Real capital plan. Yeah.
Starbucks at Ellen Keller.
Yeah. But a plan that's not just about plugging the holes and stopping the water, but also what's our vision for the environment that we want to create for the kids. I think, you know, the outdoor classroom out there with the shade on it is lights out. And that also started as an ELF project. And I think that, you know, I can't imagine a more sort of perfect partnership where, you know, they can help to drive innovation, and then they can show us how it can be, and we have more confidence in how we're investing our money. But I think you're right that it's a bigger picture. I think Jason's saying the same thing. It's a bigger, longer term conversation. I also think that our relationship and the trust that we've developed with Board of Finance over time is such that if we return a sizable chunk to the Board of Finance and then come to them next year or the following year and say, so look, we didn't, you know, hold this with the assumption that we'd figure it out and do the parking lot and we'd figure it out and do the water problem, but we gave it back And we should fast follow on any money we give back to say, hey, by the way, there are these projects. We didn't want to just hold it in case we could figure out these projects. We wanted to go figure out the projects, but now we're coming back to you and saying, we want a special allocation for these things. And I think it's part of a larger capital plan, instead of trying to bake capital plans into our regular school budgets, which I think is a mistake.
If you look back the last 3 or 4 years, there's an aggregate sum that exceeds potentially what all these projects
Spot
will
on.
look like. And you don't want to take the money from taxpayers until you need it. And
Right.
that's what we've allowed, that's what we've allowed to do. So,
Yep.
yeah. Listen, I think personally, and we don't have to go through these one by one. My question on the staff hardware laptop lease payment, unless we're getting a significant discount, I don't know why we would advance pay that. Right, unless they're gonna come back and say, here, here's your 10%, prepaid discount. Pay them when we need to, so leave it, going forward. If the Chromebooks are needed, and it sounds like they are, I mean, the security upgrades, I think everybody's on plan. We've been talking about this darn carpet since I got on the board 8 years ago. Looks fine to me. And, can't get Kim a parking lot, we give her a couple of tables in the cafeteria. I don't know what she's gonna, but, so, I mean, I think maybe I would take the 219 and subtract the 21 and call it a day and round it to 200. And you take that off of the 923 and you get 723. I mean, the town should be elated.
That's exactly my math.
So,
I don't like the idea of pushing more Chromebooks into elementary classrooms, but that's a discussion for another day.
these are
Additional question.
replacements.
No, they're not replacements.
Are they not replacements?
No,
They have 4 right now.
but you want to add to that, is what was my
I want to
takeaway.
replace what's there. Take a look at some of the ones that I think are repurposable and provide them with a little bit more.
Not one to
So
one.
then my next
Not
question,
one to
I know, but my next question is then why? What are computers used for? A, 1, 2, 3, what's the reason for more computers in those rooms, not just, I just want to add more. And I don't mean you specifically, I'm just saying, like,
So-
an intended reason. for-
Sure, so digital
increasing
literacy is really very critical. And reading a piece of paper is very different than reading on the screen. And there actually is a ton of brain research that talks about this, that says that when you are reading on a screen, different parts of your brain are activated than when you're reading on a piece of paper. Kids need to learn both modalities. And what ends up happening is that we really focus we sort of say it's kind of one or the other, when really we need to teach kids to use both well. So when you read on a screen and you highlight and you annotate, it's different than when you're reading and annotating on a piece of paper. And kids need both skill sets. So being able to offer the opportunity for kids to really be able to develop both modalities is a really important piece. So that's the sort of the literacy, numeracy kind of piece that goes along with that. And then I think that one of the interesting things about Chromebooks is the way that they can provide an opportunity for creativity and collaboration that is not available any other way. And so for a kid who really, for an auditory kid who really wants to express something that they're learning by creating a little video or making a podcast, it's a different way for them to be able to really illustrate and talk about what they've learned. That's different than writing something down. Both are really valuable skills. So it's not replacing the essay or replacing, not that little kids are doing that, but it's not replacing writing with that. It's just giving them another opportunity, especially when you're talking about a multimodal environment. And when you only have 4 devices, it doesn't lend itself really well to be able to kind of do that for all students.
I'm still missing the piece where what's the educational pedagogy of a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old needing to develop those skills? Like, what's the what's the research and what's the best practice? And not discussion for tonight, but
Right.
I think that question needs to be addressed, needs to be discussed, like, why does it need to be introduced in K 1, 2, 3? And I'm not talking about in the 4th and 5th grade and older grades, but how does, like, what's the continuum and what's best practice as far as how early we introduce those things and how early we pull kids between both, because like as was discussed even during the curriculum meeting, right? Kids like tech and tech is addictive.
Well,
And so I just think it's
Some
an
kids
important-
do, like not all kids really, I would argue that not all kids and not all people really gravitate
I
towards it.
think it's a really important discussion to have.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's one that has been had
I agree with that. And I think we
in
could,
depth so far.
I think we could dive into that conversation in some subsequent meetings. And I think it would be really valuable for us to understand from, Sarah's perspective and, Jason's perspective, Stephanie's perspective. I think that would be a really valuable conversation and we should do that.
I agree, and I'll make this, you're gonna go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, instead of doing 200K, I would love to have the tech conversation, but I will table it for another night. I would really strongly encourage us to consider the additional geodes, decodables. So if we're talking print-based resources for kids who are struggling to read, Dibble scores across the country are way down. Kids are like, decodables are a great way to teach kids to decode text. We also have
I thought that was in there still.
well, no, that there's I'm saying
Oh, more than
I would
18.
make it 36.
Sorry.
So instead of the 200, I would go to 218.
Which gets you to 1 per grade level.
It gets you 1 set per grade level plus 1 set per specialist.
Right.
And so I just think that investment, one, it'll make it a lot easier for the specialist to bring that work into the tier 1 without having to like take away from the tier 2, tier 3, right? Like we're not having to share. And I just don't think that, I think it would just be a very valuable low, like we're talking 0.01% of our budget. I just think it's really worthwhile. I would go for instead of 200 to 18.
John, question, if I could, for those of you who have history on the board, have we had situations in the past where we've given money back to the Board of Finance and then later subsequently asked to support other requests? I'm just wondering, are they gonna push back on getting the money back for things that we know we need to get done? Has this scenario happened in the past?
Very good question.
Well, it's happened twice as it relates to health claims. Back in 15, 16, we missed our health claim budget by 1.2 million. And we went back to the Board of Finance and they gave us the money. And then 2 years later, we missed it by 600,000 and came back again. That's why what we're going through now with health claims for the past 4 years has just been spectacular. But the Board of Finance has always said that if you need something, you come to us and we'll do everything we can.
And I think that helps to establish a pattern of our sort of relationship with them, but I think it's slightly different because it's kind of in order to keep the buildings running kind of thing, as opposed to more of a capital investment type project. So I don't know if we have capital investment examples that we can give. I'm not aware of any.
Jen, are you?
I just worry that we're going to give the money back and then there's going to be later pushback that some of the board may not support the areas of investment that we need to make.
I would agree that has been the case in the past. I think there's, we've approached budgets with that good faith in mind, and it has not always been reciprocated, but I don't think that we're necessarily under the same.
And I think that what Randy suggested before about a board committee dedicated to really sussing out what are we talking about when we talk about capital improvement and not just the fixing problems, led amongst our sort of central office people plus some board people plus getting feedback from the community. If we put together a real a sort of a well-researched, well thought out ask. I mean, this budget process this last season was very reasonable. And we had some true conversations, and I think in large part, thanks to the transparency that our administrators brought. So.
No, there's definitely been transformation in the process, and I could see more trust being built with the transparency that we're building. So I'm not pushing back. I just wanted to sort of throw it out there as a topic to consider. But no, I support it. Just wanted to get your thoughts.
That's a good question.
But I would also say, I think putting Band-Aids on capital improvement projects, we're just gonna spend more money in the long run.
That's
right? So we
Let's
need.
do it right.
Right.
That's my fear, is the whole Band-Aid approach. Exactly.
Things that we have to fix, which it sounds like there are, so I would like they're being addressed, but beyond that, we just need a real plan, or we're just gonna keep spending $70,000 to patch
Well,
holes.
and this happens all the time in my corporate life. This is the case. If you do it without having an understanding of the sort of the full inventory and the strategic target, what's your North Star? Like, here's the point in space where we're aiming towards. Great. Oh, well, we didn't really pay attention to that. We didn't really understand that. And we tapped our way over on the other side of the solar system. Like, we got to make sure that we understand where we're even trying to get in the first place. So there's some homework we got to do.
There is, and there's a potential, it's a low potential, but there's still potential that we could be paving the parking lot while Ed Nagy is ordered asphalt and paving for another area in town. We could be replacing this roof when they're replacing the roof at the old Staples. I mean, there's an opportunity if we do this right to leverage the town and potentially save money. And if it has to be a bond, that's a little bit different than going back to town and say, oh, by the way, we're taking $1 million out of the fund. So anyways, and I misspoke earlier. I mean, it's not that the town should be overjoyed with us giving, it's their money. We always are judicious with how we approach things. And I think that everybody gets that, but we didn't spend what we intended to spend or budget to spend. And so it goes back to the town. That's just a matter of course.
Yep. So
Can I
there,
make a motion?
I think, and so I think the place where we're seeing a little bit of back and forth is, unless there's a hard case to be made about the staff hardware, laptop lease prepayments side of things. I think it's the sort of between 200 or more than 200 because in support of decodable text, additional decodable text.
Right, so basically be cutting, instead of 219, 213, I suggest we go for 218. We take Randy's suggestion, cut the 2136, but then add in 18 to support the additional decodable text, so we have one per grade level as well as one per literacy specialist.
I support that. That sounds like an incredible resource, and with all the struggles we've heard students having with just staying, catching up from the pandemic, I think every resource would be valuable for our teachers.
I'll ask a question. Is there another area where 18,000 to develop our readers, our early readers, what have you, that these would do that you didn't put on here because you didn't think that was an option?
No, you see the foundations request, right? So that's most definitely a need for grade 3. We will need to provide professional development alongside of that for the teachers to feel ready to implement next year. The initial geode request was for the full, every teacher having a set. And then when I got my calculator out, I pulled back. And I spoke with Kim Fox Centaur. We had a conversation about it. So we talked together about it this afternoon. And so I think what you're seeing is what we feel is a prioritized list.
Just support what Devin said. I know from being a fly on the wall in my house, when ELF was being asked about the decodable text, that there's definitely some family and parent passion and emotion, around access to those kinds of resources, especially as it allows their older children to feel included and, to have material that's appropriate for their age level. You know, that just seemed to matter a lot to families.
Yeah, I met with the literacy specialist just yesterday afternoon, and we actually discussed a less expensive resource that's also decodable. They're black and white, sort of reproducible. It just doesn't have quite the same allure, right? A real quality text that is built to last, as opposed to something that's a reproducible that's in black.
Well, I mean, again, you're gonna get multiple years of use out of them. Okay, so Randy, correct my math.
Can I just?
Yes.
Fine, too.
We've done that too here too.
Okay. So sounds like you're getting close to emotion. And
Yes.
with the,
I'm just adding it up to make sure we get the
Okay.
right number.
with Randy's reduction of 21,036 from the staff hardware laptops lease payment, and your addition recommendation of the decodable text for 18,000, that changes the 219, 213 to 216, 177, which would mean that potential money going back to the town is 706,843. So you're really close, right?
Mhm.
What I think what I recommend doing is talking a little bit about security, and then coming out of that discussion, and then coming back to this place, just in case there's anything you want to talk about in security. But you've got the 216, you've got the 706, you're close, right?
Yes, so I think we'll be looking for a motion to table this item.
Motion to table.
Thank you, Devin. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Thank you, Jeff. Good. So we'll table that motion until after the security conversation. Good. All right.
Going to see.
Going to see. No, B, security report.
All right.
Right. Right. Good. All right. So we have a public facing version of the presentation, which is going to be brief, right? Where you're going to give a little bit of context, but very little context. And then we're going to dive into details, which is going to be in the executive session. One of the many reasons available to us under Freedom of Information Act law for executive session is going in to talk about specific security items. And that's certainly our intent right now. Do you want to say anything before we move to go to executive session?
Yes, I can say for the public that in January of 2022, so this year, I approached the board chairs and advised them that, I kind of informed you that I would like to do a security audit in our schools. And I asked Kerma, who is in charge of risk management and liability for municipal and local agencies, to conduct a security audit. And that's one of the divisions as part of Kerma. They have a team that can audit the security in the school. So this was confidential because I did not want to notify the community, the board, our teachers, our administrators, that the audit was going to take place, because an audit of conditions really has to be, what the actual conditions are. Right? So we talked about it in January of 22. It took until April 22nd and April 29th for a team, including myself, to conduct an audit in all 5 schools in Easton, Reading, and Region 9. And I received a report, which is still in draft form, on May 19th of 2022. And I'd like to discuss the findings of that report in executive session. But in terms of sharing the background of the public, is that security is very important to us. Long before the recent tragedy in Texas, it's been on our mind. If we wanted to do an audit in the last couple of weeks, we'd be waiting probably 6 months to a year just to get someone out here. Because all school districts right now are kind of looking at our security procedures. And I think we're in a good place because we have some data to look at our strengths and weaknesses and to make some decisions. And then to have more in-depth conversations about, what do we see as phase one of security? What do we see as phase two and phase three? And so tonight, we're really going to be looking at kind of phase one, which is some initial findings and some recommendations that we can start the conversation about.
Like to make a motion to move into executive session
For
to
the-
discuss.
Yes. For the purpose of discussing building level security. And invite into that discussion, who needs to be invited in? Okay, Dr. McKinnon. Good. All in favor?
Actually,
Yes.
need a presentation.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, I think we're gonna need to ask people to leave the room so that we can discuss, but we may be able to use the laptops here. All right, so we are in an executive session now. I'm gonna stop the stream, but keep the Zoom on.
9:24.
9:28.
Okay, we'll make it 9:26.
Don't have a